Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our live stream. My name is Miette. I am here from Atlas Lens Co., and we are streaming live from NAB in Las Vegas. And I am graced by the presence of Markus Förderer this morning.
Good morning.
ASC BVK?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Cinematographer and also creator of the Cineflares project, correct? So, Markus, how are you enjoying NAB so far?
Good. It's a great year. I've been here many times, and sometimes you get Vegas fatigue, but this time it's a great show. Lots of friends and interesting tech to check out.
Have you seen anything that you found super cool or interesting so far?
Yeah, there's some lights, and it's always like it's so fast. Like I run through the floor, and I just quickly, if I see something interesting, I snap a picture and keep going. Because if you stop and chat, like you will never make it through. So usually on the way home, I go through my pictures and try to remind myself what was interesting. It's like a couple of things.
There's so much to see too. I feel like that's a good way to do it because you can get overwhelmed, then you get sucked into conversations, and yeah, it's a lot. So, hell yeah. So would you tell us a bit about Cineflares for those in the audience who might not be familiar?
Yes. So yeah, on my day job, I'm a cinematographer. So I shot a TV show that just came out on Apple TV Plus. It's called Constellation. If you want to check it out, it's Jonathan Banks and Numi Rapace. It's very trippy. But in between projects, I keep testing lenses, and I'm like a big I have a big obsession with lenses, vintage lenses, anamorphic lenses for everything. And so actually, when I graduated from film school, I had to do like a technical project, and that's when I started shooting lens flares with motion control, because I noticed when I see people testing lenses, you always see like an AC with a flashlight moving around, which gives you a quick indication, but it's so hard to compare if you want to compare a lens. And I think lenses are so subjective and different. I think the best way, especially when I talk to a director or other collaborators, is if you look at two lenses side by side. So we created an interface. I have like help of some amazing programmers, which is like a dual side by side player, which is motion controlled, time code synced. I can show maybe
Yes,
a
please.
quick
We'd love to
thing.
see.
If you do mind holding the microphone, and I'll show
Of
you.
course.
So this is how it looks like on cineflares.com. You can check it out. There's like the same selection of lenses left and right. You select your lens, your focal length, your t-stop, and when you hit play, it's time code synced. You see them immediately side by side, and we found like this is quite a quick and efficient way to just discover something. They say, oh this looks really interesting, I want to dive deeper into this. Or maybe you say, this looks too crazy, this could be distracting. So we built a whole library, like hundreds of lenses. We have the Atlas Orion, the Silver Edition, and recently we shot the Mercuries. So there's a small free library for people to play with, and if you want to support the project, there is a little subscription for $5. Because it's so much work, and we have these programmers who are helping us. So if you're into lenses, check it out. It's a fun way to discover stuff. And actually with Dan and Atlas having this amazing collection of historic cine lenses. So we recently, in collaboration with Dan and Atlas, we shot the Atlas Lens Museum. And I'm so fascinated, because when you shoot a lens flare, I feel like the lens reveals its character. It's almost like its fingerprint, which is revealed. It's like the DNA of a lens, you can see. And there's so many old lenses which are not accessible anymore. You can't really rent them or buy them anymore. There's like a handful left. So with Dan and other collectors and rental houses, they support us. We captured some of the very early cine lenses. Like we have the first CinemaScope lenses, which are in the Atlas Museum, the Bausch & Lomb, and I was surprised to see them. Like the mount is updated to PL, but they're pretty much the original condition, and they look stunning for the first anamorphic lens. They got so much right. I have to stop this. Something's playing.
That's really amazing. I think that the work you're doing is so helpful and informative, and it's really good for historical preservation too, because like you were saying, some of those lenses are extremely hard to get a hold of. There's only so many in the world, so it could make that information about them more accessible and preserve it. So I think that's really, really
and I
cool.
think it could be an inspiration to say, maybe you go to a rental house and your lens tech and say, hey, I'm really like this. I know this lens is not around anymore, but do you have something similar, or can we tune a lens to be like this? So it's just a massive database. So there's a fun new feature we just released for NAB. It's a browse feature. You can say, for example, show me all 50mm lenses, and then you select anamorphic or spherical, large format. And then it populates a page quickly, and you see a quick overview, and then you can say like, oh wow, this one really jumps at me, and I want to explore this and test it maybe specifically for my project.
That is so cool. So I want to ask you, sort of on an artistic level, for your projects, how do you decide if you want to shoot anamorphic versus spherical? What is your decision-making process like for that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always try to be open and test for each project. I know there's some cinematographers, they pick a set of lenses and they shoot every project because they love it, they know it in and out. For me, it's the opposite. After like doing pre-production, I get quite excited to find a lens set that I feel like is the right one for that story. We test it intensely, and then I shoot with it usually for like 6 months or longer. And then I kind of get so fatigued from seeing the same lens in and out. So on the next project, I try to go a completely different way or find something new. Either mix up the camera or definitely the lens. It's hard to say. Like on my last on that Apple TV show, we shot anamorphic, but right after I shot a film that comes out in September. It's like a period film where we mixed spherical zooms and anamorphic primes. Because we wanted that documentary feel for some scenes, so spherical zoom felt right, but then there's some heightened tension moments where we go anamorphic. So I like to mix stuff. That's also what I learned so much from cineflares. You don't necessarily have to shoot a whole project with one set of lenses, right? Like, there's so many options out there right now, and rental houses, they have a lot of glass. If you have a good relationship with them and maybe work with production, maybe you don't need like a 12 lens set of one. Like, maybe you pick 4 or 5 focal lengths of one set and have a 2-3 specialty lenses. Maybe you pick lenses that have a warm tone, but for a couple of scenes you might want to have this cool flare look to contrast or set a special accents.
That makes a lot of sense. I know you shot the film Bliss on our Orion series. I know that film came out a few years ago, so it's maybe not the most recent project that you've done, but I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think, was it even the first feature, I think, to be shot on Orions? It was very early on.
It might have been, or it was definitely amongst the first few, if not.
So there was an interesting project that it's on Amazon Prime. It's called Bliss with Salma Hayek and Owen Wilson. And there's like 2 worlds in the film. Like the characters believe the world we live in is not real. It's a bit like The Matrix. They believe there's a better reality out there. So we had to find a visual way to distinguish 2 realities. So we filmed what we call the ugly world in Los Angeles, like downtown LA, and like gritty. And we thought maybe the obvious choice would have been to shoot spherical for this, and then there's a heightened world to do anamorphic, but we did the opposite. I felt the anamorphic tension in the image could create something that you feel like something is not right. Usually anamorphic I feel like is very pleasing, but in that context I argued like the vertical disproportionate bokeh feels like there's a tension, something is off. And when they enter what they believe is the real world, we switch to spherical, large format VistaVision. Suddenly everything, like the resolution is higher, it's clear. The director always described it as if you're taking some glasses off and you see the world for the first time with your real eyes. But then later, spoiler alert, they find out maybe that world is too good to be true, and the ugly world might be the place we're stuck in. Yeah.
Uplifting.
Uplifting. Yeah.
That's so interesting, because I think you're right. I think a lot of people might assume to do it the opposite way, like anamorphic, like, oh, that will be the big reveal. It's wider, etc. So really like hearing about your thought process in doing it the opposite way, because I think that also has a really interesting psychological effect while you're watching something.
And it was the great choice. The Orions, they're so fast and have pretty good close focus. It was the right choice, and like I always test, there's so many options, but sometimes it's like a gut feeling to say this checks enough boxes. I don't believe like you can just rationally say, oh, I want large format, that's why I need this lens. I think you have to look at it, it has to feel right, and sometimes it's an intuition.
Definitely. It's not just what works on paper, it's what feels right when you look at it. I think that's a big part of it. And what
gets you excited as like an artist and filmmaker, like, oh, I want to explore this now. Like they were pretty new and let's explore this. I know now there's so many more options. You have different flavors. I love the silver edition and Mercuries, and like, you know, like every other week I feel like there's a new lens coming out. Sometimes it's rehoused old lenses, like that's super exciting too, right? Lenses that were made for stills suddenly become available for filmmakers.
It's really cool. I know some people from our team just went and checked out. There's apparently a set of rehoused Takamars on the show floor somewhere, which is pretty cool.
I saw them yesterday. They're quite excited. We'd have to test them for Cineflares. They're super unique.
Yeah.
And we just released like Nikon lenses and Olympus OM. They're super. When we launched at Cineflares, I thought people would be interested in a lot of those high-end, hard to get lenses, but the opposite is the case. People keep messaging, can you add more like rehouse lenses, vintage lenses, or like entry level, that people want to see how they hold up to some of the more high-end lenses.
That makes sense to me, because I think a lot of people who are lens or cinematography enthusiasts are interested in the history of it and the kind of quirks that can come with vintage lenses. I think that's part of the fun.
Yeah, and we live in an exciting day and age that there are so many tools, and you think like, oh, now we've seen them all, right? But again, then a week later, somebody digs out some other vintage lens I've never heard of, and it looks stunning, right? Especially in the spherical, like if you look at flares, in the spherical world, there's a lot of variation of shapes, geometry, and colors. Anamorphics usually tend to be either like a cool blue streak flare. You guys introduced a warm amber flare in the Mercuries, which is nice. And that's why I think it's a cool choice to have this like silver edition where you, with lighting, manipulate and choose the color of your flares.
I really like the silver edition for that reason. I think that's a really cool thing to be able to manipulate for your artistic endeavors. So I know sometimes you can't always get into detail about what your next projects are when they're in the works, but can you tell us any fun things you might be working on or doing this year, or anything to get the people excited?
I started prep on something new, but I can't talk about it.
Of course.
But it's something really exciting and based on an 80s TV show that was quite popular, so I'm very excited.
Ooh.
And we're testing lenses right now and trying to find out what are the right tools to tell that story.
Very exciting. We'll have to keep an eye out for that. Anything else that you want to share while you're on here?
No, I think like I just want to always tell especially young filmmakers, be open and explore. Not like sometimes people think, to be a professional I need to shoot on camera X and maybe use lens Z, right? Just be open, experiment, and this is such exciting time. Like there's so many cameras that are accessible, right? You play with the DSLR and look into optics. Like the high-end cameras, they became so good that they're almost interchangeable, right? Like if you know how to expose, for me it's all about the glass, like finding the right look that's not distracting but adds some texture or a mystery to the image. So keep testing and exploring, and check out Cineflares if you want. Like it's a good starting point.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's really good advice for everyone. I have a little bit of quick housekeeping to do before I ask my final question for you. Today is the very last day of NAB 2024, so if you are in Las Vegas and you want to drop by and say hi, we will be here until 2 p.m. when the show closes. We are booth C5539, I believe. Just heard a very loud noise. That was very startling. So please come by and check out our booth. We have our brand new 18mm Orion, as well as the 135 and 200mm Orions. So yeah, please come say hi if you're here. And my last question for you, Markus. What is your favorite Las Vegas movie?
God, good question. Las Vegas movie. Did I see Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas? Did I see anything else? I mean, the Hangover trilogy is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Elvis a lot. There was some really cool. Mandy Walker did an amazing job. Like some of the recreating the stage. Hard, difficult question. I don't have a great answer for it.
That's okay. I think those were all great answers. Thank you so much for joining us. It was really nice to talk to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right. Have a good rest of your day, everyone, and we will see you next time.